Today we're going to read a book called Go Home, Mrs. Mott by Joy S. Noyes, illustrated by Keith Campbell. So as we look at this picture, we get an idea again that this is a fiction is our genre, which means it is made up. And since we see, it looks like the dog is not wearing any clothes. It looks like this could be realistic fiction in that it could really happen. And I'm going to scroll back to her. She's got such a crabby little face. I wonder if there's going to be some funny things that happen that make us laugh at Mrs. Mott's problems. So let's see if we can find some things that make this humorous. Go Home, Mrs. Mott by Joy S. Noyes, illustrated by Keith Campbell. Last Sunday, Mrs. Mott came for dinner. She was a terribly grumpy lady. I used my napkin. I kept my elbows off the table. I said please and thank you. I waited for her to go home, but she didn't. Mrs. Mott got a big suitcase out of her car instead. They are painting my living room, she told my mom, and the smell of paint is not my favorite thing. Then she looked at me. She said, I can sleep in Ronald's room. I don't mind. My mom is too nice to make anyone go home, so I had to sleep on the sofa. Our sofa is lumpy, it's scratchy, and it smells like a dirty dog. Thanks a lot, Mrs. Mott. On Monday morning, Mrs. Mott sniffed and wrinkled her nose. That dog is not my favorite thing, she said. So Mom put Otto out on the back porch. Poor Otto. On Tuesday, we had fish soup for lunch and baked fish for dinner. I hate fish, but that's what Mrs. Mott wanted. I ate the green beans and gave my fish to Otto. Then he had fish breath. So did Mrs. Mott. Yuck. Mrs. Mott turned off my TV show. Mrs. Mott turned off my TV show on Wednesday night. What a terrible noise, she said. TV is not my favorite thing. She held up her book. Here you go, Ronald. You can read to me. Are you joking? I asked her. She wasn't. So I read the book. It was How to Make Doll Clothes Out of Paper Napkins, 101 pages. Ronald does not look happy. I had to get rid of Mrs. Mott. On Thursday, I begged my mom to help me. The paint at her house must be dry now, I said. But Mom is just too nice. Oh, Ronnie, she said, why don't you try to make friends with her? Please, it might even be fun. I will never be friends with Mrs. Mott. But what Mom said gave me an idea. The next day, I got my music player, a video game, and a book. Mrs. Mott, I said, let's have some fun. Excuse me, she said. I turned the music way up. Fun, I yelled. Want to dance? Mrs. Mott put her hands over her ears. Look, I said, I have a book. I can read it to you. I held it out. Attack of the Zombie Dogs, 203 pages. Or we can play a video game, I shouted. Let's be pals. We can have fun like this every day. Mrs. Mott stood up. She left the room. When she came back, she had her big suitcase. Young man, she said, I want to tell you something. Yes, I asked. Mrs. Mott looked at me. Children are not my favorite thing, she said. Then she marched out the door. She got into her car, and Mrs. Mott finally went home. A note from the author. There is an old saying, truth is stranger than fiction. Believe it or not, this story is based on something that really happened. An elderly lady arrived for dinner at the house of a very nice writer I know. She stayed so long that it got dark, and then she was afraid to drive home. That's why she stayed over the first night. I didn't quite get why she stayed 2 more nights. The story went into my ears one day, and the next day, out of my brain leaped Mrs. Mott. Take my advice. If she ever comes to your door, pretend you are not home.